Hello, welcome back to another exciting day of dating after divorce for women, igniting your post divorce glow up, boosting confidence, and releasing fears to attract a long term, committed, and secure relationship interview series. For those of you that are just joining us, it is never too late to join. And this series is your Give It To Me Straight resource for practical and actionable advice that is going to take you one step closer to attracting a long term, committed, and secure relationship. I am your host, Stephanie Flagari, and today we have speaker Jill. Jill is a powerful speaker with a message that challenges the norm. Positivity is overrated. Through her own journey of personal challenges and growth, she empowers women to embrace their real emotions and let go of toxic positivity. Jill's unique perspective encourages audiences to face life's up and downs with honesty and resilience, creating space for true confidence. Speaker Jill is here to provide you with the Give It To Me Straight goods to help you move one step closer to attracting a long term, committed, and secure relationship as we dive into this powerful topic of the power of owning your struggles, why positivity isn't always the answer. Wow, that was a mouthful, right? So,
That's a lot of
Speaker
pain.
Jill, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a part of this series and sharing your valuable insights and knowledge with us. But before we get started, could you give us some insight into your journey and what inspired the work you're doing now?
Absolutely. And of course, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this today. So, my journey has often felt like a roller coaster that I never wanted to ride on.
Mm,
I have had my share of struggles and personal challenges. We all have.
yeah, yeah,
For me,
yeah.
I was a single mom and I eventually started my own business. Right after that, I found out I had breast cancer. And
Oh.
during that time, I was also dealing with an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
But after coming through all of that, I came to realize that positivity is overrated. Now, how I achieved that mindset and kind of a little bit more about me is I was not the pro pink fight like a girl cancer patient. I
Mm.
did not embrace my chemo induced balding head like the women you see on the TV commercials. Matter of fact, I thought I looked a lot like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Oh no.
Oh, it was awful. And I kicked and screamed and whined and cried all
Oh,
through treatment.
wow.
And
Yeah.
uh and I was attached to my bandana for a little too long to the point that the hair was like growing out from underneath it. So that. And then I also during this time clung to my way too young for me boyfriend.
Mm.
Uh I'm sure a lot of the women will understand I was tired of being single and I started dating this guy because I wanted to have some fun.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and but quickly determined not the best choice.
Mm.
He started becoming controlling, and my solution was to have him start working my business with me.
Mm.
Then, very shortly after, I found out I was sick. So I didn't want to let him go. And I was, of course, obviously terrified to go through all that process without him. But I think one of the biggest breakthroughs for me was learning to embrace the full spectrum of emotions.
Mm.
And the reason I bring up my cancer a lot when I talk is because when you're sick, they let you run the full gamut, right? You can be mid sentence and go from crying to laughing to yelling, and they understand. And my belief is that you shouldn't have to be stage three anything for people to let you honestly express your emotions. Now, I think that any life altering situation, whether it is a medical diagnosis, getting divorced, after being married, losing a job that threatens your livelihood. People don't know what to say, and they want to make you feel better. So you'll hear things like, "Oh, it's all going to be okay."
Right.
And when one door closes, and then my
Yeah.
absolute worst favorite of that is everything happens for a reason,
Oh
which
gosh.
I
Yeah.
I believe that's like victimization. I just think
Mhm.
that takes power away from us.
Mhm.
So I didn't tell anybody that I was sick unless they needed to know, because I didn't want to hear those empty, baseless words of encouragement. I'm curious out there if the women, when you first decided to, venture back into dating, if when you told your friends and your family, if you ever got that sympathetic head tilt,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
that's just brutal, isn't it? Uh,
yes.
so I believe
Mhm.
that positive quotes are not the answer. We
Mm-mm.
use them because we don't know what else to say
Yeah.
or to do. And the way I approach things is with the belief that if you don't just try to gloss over or placate a bad situation, a true resolve is going to come to you with a clear head.
Yeah.
When I started on my journey and I started looking back, the amount of times that I could remember of holding in being scared, being, anxious, being angry, it just built up. And until this dam of my, built up emotions would break open. And I can remember having arguments with boyfriends, with roommates, with family, with friends. And it was always triggered by just holding everything in for too long.
Yeah.
My intent with my message that positivity is overrated is to show you how to be in control of your emotions. And
Mm.
that does not mean controlling them by holding them in. That means in
Right.
control of when you're
Right.
letting them out.
Right.
Um, there's an episode of one of my favorite shows, Seinfeld,
Mm.
where all the characters are embracing that serenity now movement.
Right.
And by the end of the episode, they all start to kind of snap. And that's because, we hear a
Oh
lot
no.
of, right? We hear a lot
Yeah.
of great positive things, but if you don't put the action
Yeah.
behind it, then you're accomplishing nothing. And
Right.
feelings are meant to be felt.
Yeah.
And that is really the journey that has gotten me here and what I'm here to share with all of y'all. So that's my
Thank,
story.
thank you so much for opening up and sharing a little bit about your story and giving space for even allowing a little bit of that vulnerability to shine through. And when I was listening to everything that you were saying, your story is such a powerful example of how we can transform our challenges and actually use that for our growth.
Yeah.
Now, hearing that how you have risen and kind of yeah, you wanted to pull your hair out at times or beat your head against the wall and scream at people and go through all of those emotions, but it also carved out this truly remarkable and incredibly inspiring story that you're able to share with us right now.
Oh,
And
thank you.
now I'm curious, and there's probably some women out there that are tuning in that are curious about this as well, that, many women feel pressured to stay positive. And even when we're going through these very painful experiences, such as divorce, and you even gave those same experiences too. You want to bottle it up and not show it and not tell people because you don't want to hear those quotes or any of those other stuff. That's the last thing you want to hear. But
Yeah.
how did you come to realize that allowing space for other emotions was actually more healing for you?
Oh, goodness. Well, because it was actually while I was going through treatment that I was doing that. And then I didn't realize it, of course, hindsight's 2020, right? But it was at the point that I realized, wow, when I'm able to express myself, when I was able to honestly feel what I was feeling,
Yeah.
it's like a release. You know, if you've ever, if you've ever lost your temper, all right,
We all have.
yeah, okay. I hate to admit it, you feel better afterwards
Mhm.
when you allow yourself to, and the whole point of this is to not allow things to build up.
Yeah.
And if you just at the moment you're like, I'm feeling sad, and I don't want somebody to go, oh, just hang in there, because when you do that, it takes away what you're feeling.
Mm.
And I think as a society, we have become more aware that we need to be, and it's silly to say, more honest with
Yeah.
how we're feeling. Because keeping all of that inside of you, and of course, there's been studies and research done that, your physical is affected by your emotional. And when you are unhappy and you're faking it, that I think that is a detriment to your body and how you heal.
I absolutely how you even brought that up where the mind and body are connected because they are. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of where we're starting to see more of that, where it stems from people's illnesses or why they're getting sick and that stress. And it takes
Mhm.
a toll on you. It really does take a toll on your mental health. And that starts seeping into other aspects of your life because why wouldn't it? So I love that. And I know
Yeah.
at times that this is the last thing that anyone wants to do is to feel like we have to deal with our emotions. And what happens if I let all of that out? What will happen? Will I say the wrong things? Is there something that I cannot take back? And
Yeah.
so therefore I'm just gonna bottle it up. I'm gonna push it under the rug. I'm gonna turn the other cheek because I don't want to deal with that. Which leads me to your mantra. And this mantra is positivity is overrated. Now, I'm
Yeah.
interested in knowing how has your mantra, positivity is overrated, helped you personally in overcoming challenges? And why do you think it's an important message for women navigating dating after divorce?
Oh, well, it became my mantra because I don't think anyone needs to pretend that everything is
Mm.
rainbows and butterflies
Yeah,
all the time, whether it's in an attempt to make themselves feel better
yeah,
or to make others feel better. The concept of toxic positivity, it isn't about rejecting positivity. That's not what we're trying to do. It's about understanding that it is unhealthy and it's unrealistic to try to sustain that level of constant happiness and joy, and not just be real about things. For women dating after divorce, I think this message is especially powerful.
mm.
Society loves to tell you to just move on, to get over it, but don't we all know after a breakup, that your hearts just don't work like that.
Right.
And I think it's necessary and it's okay if you feel unsure, nervous, scared, because you've just come through grieving a relationship.
Yeah.
But once, I think that once you own the choice to start on this new journey, that's when you'll start to build stronger connections. And you have to trust yourself that you will find a partner that will appreciate you for your full and unfiltered selves. And that's important because sometimes they just see the shiny happy parts that come out on first dates. So I think it's also important to know that you're worthy of bringing new people in to share your life with, whether that is at a good dinner or a nice movie
Yes.
or just hanging out together, having good conversation, and of course, let's not forget the intimacy that will eventually follow with that, because life is just too short to stay at home.
It is.
My, right now, of course, there's times, like I said, that you want to be at home.
Mhm.
I'm a believer that there is a reason that sad movies and sad songs exist. That's because somebody owned their feelings so much so that they
Mhm.
were able to expel that, and bring it
Yes.
out into the world so that you are able to connect with it and help fix your own stuff. Um, Crying is very cathartic. I think
It
any of the
is.
women that
It
are
very
listening
it is.
today will agree that it is very, all right. However, you can't live in it.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
emotional actions as a tool as you kind of move forward. I like to think of it as like when you're walking in the summer. And I live in downtown and I tend to walk every day. And in the summertime when it's really, really hot because I'm in Texas, um, sun's beating down on you and you'll hit certain spots where there's shade and you
Mm.
get a little reprieve. But if you stay there, well, eventually the sun's going to find you, and then you're just going to be, sweating and hot again. And then you will have wasted the time because you didn't make any movement forward while you tried to stay there. And crying, same thing. Use it as a tool, get it out of you, and get on with it. Because when I was when I was going through breast cancer, there was a movie that I watched, uh, Stepmom
Oh,
with Julia
yes.
Roberts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
That's what it's
is it
called.
was it
Yes, stepmom.
okay?
Yes.
Was it
Good
Susan
movie.
Sarandon?
Good
Yeah,
movie.
was Susan Sarandon? I think was
Yes,
the ex-wife.
Susan
Okay,
Sarandon. Uh-huh.
I'm crying and crying and crying, and somebody comes to the door, a friend of mine, and they're like, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" And
Mm.
this kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I didn't realize it at the time, and I couldn't explain why, but I knew that somehow inside that it was helping me accept, my situation. And I would venture to say that a few of y'all out there may have seen a divorce movie or two. um,
Yes.
if you haven't, I would suggest that's a nice way. What's the one? How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Always a
Oh,
good one.
yes.
Um,
That, yeah,
right?
that is a good one.
So, I want to say personally, creating this mantra has helped me confront some of my toughest moments. Instead of posting a stay positive meme or some
Yeah.
cliche happiness quote, I challenge you and those in the audience today to feel what you're feeling. Take a moment to be in it
Yeah.
because it's empowering to own your struggles and your fears. And it can help you recognize not only how strong you are, but how ready to date you are.
Yes. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. And I
Thanks.
know, and I love how you mentioned this, like about music or movies and how it allows us to connect. Because I know a big one for me, even to this day, I have like specific playlists and music
Mm-hmm.
is my jam, is my thing, and that's
Yep.
whenever I need to have that release. I know that is my go-to tool. That okay, you know what, let's just let this all out. So I'm a firm
Yep.
believer into using music and using those tools that allows that to finally come out and not have that be suppressed. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
to explore this further, and I'm sure we touched a little bit about it, but how would you suggest women implement this mindset? The positivity is overrated mindset while navigating the common ups and downs of dating after divorce, if we haven't touched on it already. Is there any other?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And it's just sometimes it's as simple as just listening to others and listening to yourself. Because I still will hear myself want to make someone feel better, whether it's on a date,
Mm.
whether it is a friend that's going through something, your instinct
Yeah.
as a human is going to be, oh, it's going to be okay. Now, we don't know that.
Yeah.
So I think that the best way that you can start doing is setting boundaries for yourself
Mm.
and start to recognize that what you don't want to hear, you don't want to say. And if you start to, I think, and again, don't hesitate to tell your friends, and I tell my friend, I don't want to hear it. I mean, I appreciate it. Acknowledge that you understand they're
Yeah.
trying to tell you something. But when it comes to friends and families that are trying to support you when you're trying to go back to the dating scene, you know, make sure that you have boundaries for yourself. I think that's the quickest way to start implementing, this keeping toxic positivity away from you is telling people that, you're aware of what they're saying. And people will kind of go, oh, I never thought about it. Because if you tell them, they start going, oh, you know what, you're so right. Because it's not it's not difficult if you just tell somebody, just be honest. And if something stinks, let them know. Here's the thing. Who do you value more? The friend that comes to you and says, oh, just hang in there. You're tough. You can do this. Or the friend that shows up with a bottle of wine and sits down with you and says, hey, we're going to watch this sad movie. We're going to cry our eyes out. And then we're going to go and we're going to set you up on a dating profile. That's the friend. You want the one that's going to, value what you're going through, but also help you move forward.
Yes, I absolutely love that too. Because that's the last thing you want to hear. I'd much rather have the friend that comes in with the wine is like, okay, let's feel our feels and then let's come on, have a plan. Let's
Yeah.
do this. And such
I
a
had a,
oh
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, go right ahead. What were you gonna add on to that? So I
I
love that
had
example.
Well, no, I had a friend who tells me, she goes, You're the one that I come to when I need to hear
Yes.
what I don't want to hear." And everybody knows what friend to go to, and so that they are valuable and keep them close.
Yes, I love that. And such impactful and useful information to digest and implement that. So thank you for sharing that. But to help alleviate concerns with adapting this mindset for those that are tuning in, are there any common misconceptions you've seen about embracing negative emotions? And how do you suggest reframing them? So I know that there might be even some that were like, okay, you know what? You can't be negative. Oh, snap out of it. Oh, stop being angry. Or you've been angry too long. Or oh, stop being depressed. Oh, this isn't gonna get you a man. Or whatever the case may be.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of myths, I would say,
Mhm.
around dating after divorce, right? And one of the biggest ones is that, you have to move on quickly and you have to do things to present yourself to others that you're getting over it and that, this is a good thing for you and you're, like you said, snapping out of it quickly. But you can't be afraid to tell
Yeah.
somebody, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And also, and a bigger thing is that when you go and you want to go out and date, you're in control of this dating journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go out and you're not ready yet, and you say, oh, you know what, that's kind of too soon. Or I don't, you go out, you try, and you want to wait and come back and work on yourself a little bit more. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
And I think if there's people that are trying to tell you something that you know isn't in your best interest, again, back to setting boundaries. You've got, I've got I've got a few opinions, but yes, no, I think it's very, very important that you have to be, honest with how you're feeling. This all comes back to you trusting yourself and
Mhm.
feeling your feelings. And if somebody's telling you something that you're like, that's just not right, you can't be afraid. But there's a very fine line, and we know this, between being negative and being honest, and I think that that's important to recognize the two.
We are receiving some golden nuggets here, ladies. So thank you, Jill. But this also has me thinking and wondering, how can women strike a balance between avoiding toxic positivity and not coming off as negative when re-entering the dating scene? And I know we kind of bleeded that off just now. So can we
Yeah.
dive into that a little bit more to where we can strike
Oh,
that balance?
oh, absolutely.
Like
You know,
how can we
and like
do
I
this?
said, well, and
Is
like I
it
just said,
possible?
it is. I like I just said, there's a very fine line, and there's fine lines everywhere. It's
Mm,
like if we could ever see
yeah,
them in the world, there'd be threads everywhere.
right.
Um, but I think it's a delicate balance,
Mm,
obviously, for sure. But like I said, it starts with being real. Toxic positivity pushes you to present this facade that, you're constantly happy, or you're constantly, grateful. That gratitude word
yeah,
has been pushed around a lot, right?
yeah, yeah.
But it's not realistic. And even worse is that it's not genuine. And I think that my advice is to focus on being present rather than perfect. I don't think anybody should feel pressured to project, that they're all confident and that you've got this and, you're super upbeat and stuff. Because, and we all know this, the best relationships are built on honesty and
Mm,
even a little bit of vulnerability. Now, with that said, if you want to commiserate with, somebody on how awful your ex was, that's what your friends are for, right? To an extent. And like we were just
Mhm.
talking about, here's the thing. Now, if you haven't noticed yet by listening to me talk, I tend to reference pop culture a lot. Um,
I
but
love it. I absolutely love it. I'm here for
but
it.
you know why? Because I believe it is a way for you to analyze a
Mm,
situation without having any skin in the game, without
yeah,
having to worry about, having a personal connection to the outcome.
yeah,
Um, so I say that to preface this from a Sex in the City fans out there. So the two main
yeah,
characters, Carrie
yeah,
and Mr. Big,
yeah,
when they had a big breakup, and Carrie was going to her friends a lot. She, relied on them
yeah.
heavily for a very long time. And they finally had to confront her. And they're like, we're sick of hearing it. Because
Done.
you do,
No more.
there's a part where, she was constantly complaining about the failed relationship and this, and they're like, you're becoming a drain. So I think this
Mm,
is what I spoke about
mhm,
earlier, when you
mhm.
need to be a little self-aware and make sure that you don't push that too far. And because I think her friends told her that she needed to go to therapy. And so, and I'm a huge proponent of therapy. But when it comes to dating, the same type theory applies here. When you're out on a date, don't mistake that person for your therapist.
Mm.
And it's easy when you start
Yeah.
connecting about stories and, ways.
Mhm.
Also, and like we said earlier, don't mistake your honesty or being real for
Mhm.
being kind of hateful or negative.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the balance, I think, comes in. So let's say, you and your date are both in the same type of, time frame. Like maybe you're newly divorced, you're fresh into the dating pool, or well, actually, you know what, even not.
Yeah.
There will be the topic of conversation is, why are you single and what happened with your previous relationship? So
Mm,
this is probably
mhm.
the most important thing I will say to you today. And that is, regardless of how your marriage ended, you do not need to delve into the details, especially if you can paint that person in a bad light.
Yeah.
And I say this because even if they deserve it, and we all know they deserve it, right? Um, but it puts a huge red flag on
Yes.
you,
Mhm.
because that person is now all of a sudden going to always have it in the back of their mind that, ooh, if I start dating them and we don't work out, are they going to talk
Mhm.
about me?
Yep.
and talk badly, and they don't want that. Um, and the same holds true for the opposite. If you are listening to your date tell you how crazy their ex was,
Oh no.
or that she did this or that or the
Uh,
other,
yeah.
run as fast as you can. Just trust me on this because I am right. So with that said, just want to throw that in there. Because when you're dating, obviously there's no need to pretend that everything is perfect and fine. But like I said before, there's always a fine line. So here's a suggestion. Instead of if somebody asks you how you're doing, instead of saying I'm fine, everything's all right,
Yeah.
try to answer in a way that reflects your resilience and not just, your pain. So instead, say something like, I've been through a lot, but I am learning every day, and trying to embrace it as it comes. Because that type of approach with just you're saying the same thing, but you're just being a little more honest and a little more open. And I think you're being a little more hopeful. And I think the other person is going to know that number one, self awareness,
Mhm.
and that you're working on yourself, which is not only super attractive, but it doesn't come off as being negative.
I love that too because I know, and I'm kind of like circling back to finding that balance. And I know I was guilty of toxic positivity at one point in my healing journey, and it did cause more confusion and frustration. So, and I know we
Mhm.
touched on this a little bit. So I must ask, what role do you think self awareness plays in achieving this balance between avoiding toxic positivity and not coming off as negative when re entering the dating scene? And how can women develop it when re entering the dating scene after divorce? So, for any other in depth advice or suggestions you might have when it comes to this.
Well, I think that the self awareness is, and I know a thing has come to kind of, a forefront lately when it comes to work. And they would tell you as a woman, don't apologize, because we have a tendency of,
Mhm.
oh, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. I don't
Yes.
know why we do it. And it's not technically toxic positivity, but it's kind of a kind of
Yeah.
thing where you don't feel you're not expressing your true emotions because you're saying I'm sorry because you don't want to say something else. And I think if you give yourself pause, that you can come up with a better answer than that. There's that. But I think one of the things we need to realize when it comes to toxic positivity and hearing and saying things is, I know another problem is love bombing. So let's say you're
Mhm.
on a date and I expect to be told that I look fabulous because I'm sure I have worked on that outfit for days.
Right.
I'd love to hear that, I'm beautiful, but I think it's important to not only listen to what your date's telling you, but how they're telling you. And we know, I mean, we really do. So I think that, there's toxic positivity can actually kind of expand upon things where people are just telling you stuff because they want you to hear it. And
Right.
the self-awareness comes in trusting that inner, that doesn't sound right. And I think that's
Right.
really, really important. And I hope that kind of helps.
Thank you. Self awareness seems to play such a critical role. And I know that we have, touched on these different areas in helping women find that balance between being open and also staying grounded in their emotional truth. So, developing that self awareness is key in any stage of our personal growth, I believe, and
Mhm.
especially after a significant life event. It doesn't matter if it's divorce or a death or, any of those big events that come into play. But with that in mind, when it comes to stepping back into the dating world, it can be difficult to approach it with a sense of authenticity, especially when fears and uncertainties are still present. So, what advice would you give to women on how to navigate these challenges while staying true to themselves in their dating journey?
Oh, well, dating authentically, it's all about owning your circumstances.
Mm,
And I mean, obviously, you all know that, you dating after divorce is a new chapter.
yeah,
Um, and it comes with a mix of both excitement, and maybe a little hesitation,
yeah,
I think.
yeah,
But first of all, you got to give yourself permission to feel all of it. You don't
right.
have to hide, your fears or
Yeah,
uncertainties.
yeah.
I can almost bet that the person that is across from you at the table or they're next to you at the movies is feeling that same nervousness.
Yes.
And if you're just
Very
honest,
true.
right? And if
Yes.
you're honest with them, you're gonna just you
Mm,
tell them, okay, I'm super nervous, aren't you? It's gonna put both of you
yes.
at ease. In
Yes.
fact, I think when you do that, you're gonna just that's starting it off to you possibly,
Yeah.
having a deeper connection with this person. um I think, trusting your intuition is key. We kind of touched on that earlier. If something doesn't feel right, I think it's important to acknowledge it.
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you, I always, 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 I attribute this, what I'm about to say, to the wrong person. I know I do. I always think that Oprah said it, and I think that Oprah said it, but I think she was actually quoting Maya Angelou. And it
Oh, okay.
says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Have you heard this before?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yes.
and I don't say this lightly, and I certainly don't say this to scare you, but the dating world it's a challenge, and
Mhm.
especially if it's been a while since you've been in it.
Yeah.
So, I will say this, from me personally. I saw so many red flags, for the man that I talked about earlier that I dated that turned violent.
Yes.
Let me tell you, not only did I ignore them,
Mm.
I ran right at him like I was a bull to a fighter.
Yeah.
Um, I cannot stress enough that if you just listen to your inner self, she is not going to steer you wrong, but you got to listen to her.
Yeah.
Um, I I think that when you are navigating the dating pool, um, like I said before, you got to listen to what the guys are saying, to you and at you. Are they respectful? Um, and this comes back to again what we talked about earlier about how they speak about the ones, prior
Right.
to you.
Right.
Um, I think after anybody goes through a divorce, you have problems. We were talking about, self-awareness and being authentic. You have to trust yourself.
Mhm.
You dated before you married them. So
Yeah.
just remember, you can do this.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
if you start to
Yes.
feel anxious, you start to feel unsure, lean into that. Lean into that with the same curiosity you did when you were younger, rather than judgment. You don't be so hard on yourself. We're all evolving every single day, and anybody that's trying to push you to get over it, or push, make the past is the past kind of thing,
Yeah.
listen to them, because if they move on too quickly, that might be something you want to worry about. But authenticity, to me, it means you are setting the pace of this
Yes.
journey that you are
Mhm.
on. I mean, you set the terms for your own
Mhm.
dating journey.
Right. And like, holy cow. There was so many golden nuggets and information that we covered. But to cover just a little bit more, would you mind sharing a little bit about your free goodie and with those that are tuning in with us today?
Oh, absolutely. So I have a 5 tips to avoid toxic positivity while dating, little PDF for you. Um, and it is a little helpful thing that helps you to embrace authenticity on your post-divorce journey. Now you're going to be able to find this on my website. I have a special, if you go to positivityisoverrated.com/5 real tips, it's going to take you into a secret spot on my website. And then should I give the password for you to be able to get into that so you can
Uh,
download the
I'll
PDF?
I'll go ahead and add it into the speaker page and we'll be good to go.
Okay. All right. But yeah, that is something that I think is valuable. They're very quick and easy to implement tips as you are navigating your way through this process, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you for sharing that. And go ahead and click that link down below. Everything is already set up. Use that code, or else you're not going to be able to access this free goodie. And Jill, I always like to leave with asking, and as this is what this series is all about, is there any last piece of advice or actionable step that you would like the listeners to leave with today?
I do. I would say the actionable step that you can take is when you go on a date, I want you to come home and that evening, if at all possible, I'm not judging whatever happens if you have to do it the next morning, but write down like 2 or 3 things. I know you don't have anything long, but just write down things that you liked about the date,
Mm,
liked about the person, and and that way you can kind of keep a journal of things that you start to recognize that you do and don't like in something or somewhere or some event, because you're going to be able to explore a whole new world of activities with whole different set of people. And I think when you write things down, it really helps you kind of go back and go, oh yeah, I liked that, or I didn't like that about this, and it will help you kind of narrow down what you're looking for in the future.
yes, that is such amazing advice right there. Because I love that piece too, because it also kind of helps you reflect and you're like, okay, let's take a little closer look at that. Or
Yeah.
maybe that we're not such a good match. Maybe this
Mm-hmm.
person is. So I absolutely love that, like for writing down these things. But for those that are listening in, make sure you grab that free goodie, 5 tips to avoid toxic positivity while dating. And also be sure to tune back in for the rest of our Dating After Divorce for Women interview series. Thank you for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.